So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News and Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time. Now, needless to say this, you have to revise this lecture just after watching it, because if you're just going to watch this lecture, well, these current affairs would quickly skip your mind. So revise this lecture from the notes provided by us. These notes are shared on our Telegram channel, and the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below. So do check those notes out and revise it. All right. Let's begin today's session, but first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So let's begin. So daily current affairs, 11th November, Tuesday, and here is the topics list. So number one, we'll talk about AI governance guidelines that were recently released by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Okay, we have discussed these governance guidelines, but let's discuss them in a little bit more detail. Okay, so we'll talk about this. Then, well, we have discussed this initiative launched by Brazil, which is Tropical Forest Forever framework, okay, which India also joined as an observer. But there are certain concerns with this framework, okay. Some new articles came out with respect to this, so we'll talk about TFFF again. Then the third news item is with respect to quality control orders and how they are harming India's import and export business, international trade basically. Though the intention was good with respect to quality control orders, but they are harming our import-export, so we need to change their rules and regulations, okay? So this is there. And in the end, we'll talk about the discovery of DNA and its structure, the double helix structure. Whenever you hear the term DNA, you imagine a double helix strand, right? So, well, we'll talk about who discovered that strand, because that person recently died. James Watson died at the age of 97. So we'll talk about this also. So these are the 4 news items. Topic number 1 is related to, well, science and technology portion and policy governance portion of your UPSC syllabus. Topic number 2 is related to environment. Topic number 3 is related to economics portion of your UPSC syllabus. And topic number 4, clear-cut science and technology portion of your UPSC syllabus. Okay, so these are the 4 news items. Let's start discussing them one by one, starting with AI governance guidelines. Okay then. The thing is, we have discussed this topic before. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology knows that the new path-breaking technology is artificial intelligence. But we cannot allow artificial intelligence to go unregulated, because if there are no rules and regulations with respect to artificial intelligence, well, anyone can misuse it. Already many people are misusing it. Okay, so we need a regulatory framework under which AI would develop in India. Okay, we need rules and regulations. But the problem is that if this regulatory architecture is too tight, that means if the rules and regulations with respect to AI are too strong, too burdensome, then they would stop innovation, okay, in AI. India would fall behind when it comes to innovation in AI. So you need to regulate it, but you need to follow a light touch approach so that misuse is discouraged, whereas innovation is encouraged. On that note, MeitY, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, launched AI governance guidelines, how AI would be governed in India. Now, we have discussed this. Let's discuss certain things about this in a more nuanced fashion, okay, in more detail. Clear? So let's talk again about AI governance guidelines. All right. So what was in the news? MeitY has unveiled governance guidelines for AI, which could serve as a blueprint for how India regulates the technology. Balancing innovation. Remember, I told you, you need to balance innovation, but you need to also ensure that the misuse is discouraged. Balancing innovation with accountability and growth with safety. It is not misused. This launch comes ahead of India AI Impact Summit, which will be the first ever global AI summit hosted in Global South. So India is hosting India AI Impact Summit, okay, where all the countries would come and talk about how AI should be regulated. So these guidelines have been unveiled just before this summit in 2026. Okay. Now let's talk about the key pillars of these guidelines. What is mentioned in these guidelines? Okay. Yeah. So first pillar is that government needs to spend a lot of money in expanding the infrastructure for AI. You see, AI requires a few things. For example, you need certain chips, graphics processing units, GPU chips, and you need these chips in bulk. Only then AI would work. Then you need data sets, because these AI models are trained on a particular data. So you need open data sets also. You need a lot of things for AI to run. Now, these things are collectively known as AI infrastructure. So if AI needs to develop, India needs to expand this AI infrastructure. So the first guideline or the first pillar is related to expanding infrastructure. So expanding access to data and computing resources, like subsidizing GPU production, promote India-specific data sets so that we don't have to import data, or we are not reliant on foreign AI models. We create our own AI models. Integrate AI with digital public infrastructure. Integrate AI with Aadhaar UPI, which are DPIs, digital public infrastructure. Incentivize MSMEs through tax rebates and AI-linked loans so that more and more MSMEs use AI and increase their productivity. So infrastructure is pillar number one. Then capacity building. Well, AI is going to be used by people, but people need to know how to use AI. So we need to enhance AI literacy and training for citizens, public servants, because government is also going to use AI, and law enforcement. Skilling, especially in smaller cities and governments. So human capacity, human resource development with respect to AI so that people know how to use AI. This is another. Then policy and regulation. These guidelines have made it clear that to regulate AI, we are not going to create a new law. We are going to use existing laws. Yes, we are going to do certain amendments so that they accommodate AI, but we are not going to create a new law for AI. So use existing laws like Information Technology Act, Digital Personal Data Protection Act with targeted amendments, no immediate standalone AI law. Then risk mitigation. Develop India-specific AI risk assessment reflecting local realities. The risk with respect to AI in USA would not be a risk in India. Okay, India is different, USA is different, Europe is different. So we need to create a proper risk assessment mechanism. What kind of risks are there in India when it comes to AI? We need to do that. Then certain other key pillars: accountability. Proposed graded liability regime linked to function and risk. Mandate grievance redressal if you are harmed by AI. Transparency reporting, self-certification, all these things are mentioned. The institutions, government institutions involved in regulation of AI. We are following whole of government approach. That means all departments of the government would be involved in regulating AI. Then content authentication. You know, these days we are creating AI generated videos, AI generated images, and sometimes these images are used to fool people, spread fake news. These are called deep fakes. So we need content authentication. Address synthetic, that means AI content. Proposed IT rules to require labeling of AI generating content. All AI generated content will have a label which says that it is AI generated so that people are not fooled. This is there. Then guiding principle of these guidelines. Do no harm, promote innovation with safety. Remember, we are following a balanced approach. Not too strong guidelines so that it harms innovation, but not too light so that misuse is rampant. Clear? There is one problem, and that is government concerns. Government officials will use AI. When they'll use AI, they will put in government files in ChatGPT, Perplexity, or any of these things. Perplexity and ChatGPT might have access to sensitive government secrets. So how to regulate this? This is a concern. Then what kind of legal amendments are required so that AI is regulated properly? This is another concern that is still not answered by these guidelines. Let's see what happens in future. Okay, so this is the thing. Clear? So now these are the things that you need to remember with respect to AI governance guidelines. Clear? All right. Now let's move on to second news item, and that is issues with Brazil's TFFF. You all know we have covered this news item, okay? Brazil is hosting Conference of Parties 30 of UNFCCC, the climate summit that happens annually. Okay, Brazil is hosting. And while Brazil is the host, Brazil has spearheaded the launch of Tropical Forest Forever initiative, under which a funding mechanism is created so that countries are financially incentivized to conserve tropical forests. The country that conserves tropical forests would get this funding, would be financially rewarded. Now, where would the money for this fund come from? Well, the money would come from both governments as well as private players, private investors. Okay, so this is TFFF. Again, many people are saying the idea is very great. Under this, well, conservation is financially rewarded. So people now have a chance to earn money. Countries have a chance to earn money if they conserve more tropical forests. It's a good initiative, and that is why India expressed its interest to join this, right? But the problem is there are certain issues which many critics are highlighting now. So first we'll talk about TFFF and then we'll talk about issues. Okay. So let's talk about this. Issues with Brazil's TFFF. So Tropical Forest Forever Facility Conservation Fund was launched at COP30 Climate Summit in Belém, Brazil. It aims to raise and invest 125 billion to reward developing tropical forest countries for conserving old growth forests. Purpose is a permanent self-financing mechanism channeling investment returns as rewards for forest conservation. So what will happen? Under this, TFF fund would be created. Okay. Money would be credited to this fund. Around $125 billion would be credited to this fund. Then these $125 billion would be invested. It would be invested in financial markets like Bombay Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, bonds, many other things. It would be invested. Now the returns that would be generated, return/income that would be generated from these investments would be used for conservation. Understand? That is why it is a self-financing mechanism. You just have to collect money once. After this collection, you'll invest this money. And then the income generated through that investment would be used for conservation. And this would go on and on and on. This is the thing. Clear? So, TFF, funding mechanism. Target 125 billion for once. Now, 25 billion would come from governments, charitable people, okay, and 100 billion would come from private investors. Known contributions, people who have already pledged money. Brazil and Indonesia has said that they will donate 1 billion, Norway 3 billion, Colombia 250 million, Netherlands 3 million, Portugal 1 million euros. Okay, and then private players would also generate this money. The mechanism would be funds invested in mixed portfolios, including public and corporate bonds. So you would invest money in government bonds, in private bonds. Money, returns would be generated through these investments, and that would be used to finance conservation efforts. Remember this. Annual returns distributed to eligible countries based on satellite data monitoring forest canopy cover. And one more thing. The country that does the best job for conserving forest would be given more money. Okay, so remember, funds are invested, income is generated, that income is given to those countries which are doing well. Countries who are not doing anything, not doing well, won't be given this money. So you are connecting financial reward with conservation efforts. Okay, incentive. And that the data which country is doing better will come from satellite data. But remember, this money in the fund is not given to countries. Income generated through this money would be given. Remember this fact. Significance aims to make forest conservation financially more attractive than deforestation. Now you can also earn money by conserving forests through this mechanism. So deforestation activities would be reduced. This is a very good idea. Clear? But there are certain concerns. What are those concerns? Well, the idea is that you will have a fund. You will invest this fund in markets. And these markets would generate returns. And that would be used for conservation. That is the idea. Now, what if the market does not perform? We all know that share market sometimes goes up, sometimes goes down. Financial markets are volatile. As long as they are growing, you will generate good returns for conservation. But what if it falls? What if there is a recession? Then what happens? Okay, so financial market volatility is one problem. Then, this fund is not under UNFCCC. It is launched in UNFCCC conference, but it is not under UNFCCC, which means the countries are not, this TFFF is not legally binding. There is no law which will make sure that this would be enforced. This is a problem, legal binding. And undermining climate finance mechanisms. Already under UNFCCC, there are so many climate finance mechanisms through which developed countries have to pay money to developing countries. Now, if TFF would work, TFFF would work, developed countries have now an excuse that already there is TFFF, so why do we need to contribute any money? So they would stop contributing money. So this would undermine the existing donation mechanisms where developed are giving money to developing, because now they would stop. They would say, take money from TFFF. So this is a problem. It is a method through which developed countries can shirk their responsibilities. Okay, so these three things are major criticisms. All right. Now let's move forward to third news item, and that is problems of quality control orders. Now listen to me very carefully. You see, India wants that there should be this reputation for India globally, that India produces quality products. If you'll buy anything from India, it will be of quality. It will have good quality. Okay, this reputation is not there with China. All over the world, many people say that China sells cheap goods, and these are of bad quality. India wants that all products manufactured in India should be of high quality, so that this branding takes place in the entire world that India produces good products. Okay. Now for this, well, government issues quality control orders. Under this, whatever you are manufacturing, this should follow certain quality standards. Certain specifications are given. For example, if anyone is manufacturing this pen, specifications are given which every manufacturer has to follow so that this pen is of quality when exported. Okay. Recently, it was found that these quality control orders, no matter how well-intentioned they were, government came out with these quality control orders with good intentions, but these are having some negative consequences as well. So let's talk about those negative consequences. Okay. So problems of quality control orders. So a Niti Aayog report, which is yet to be made public by High Level Committee on Non-Financial Regulatory Reform, said that a majority of quality control orders, QCOs, cover raw materials and intermediate products. They don't cover final goods. Now, what is the harm for this? Well, all the manufacturers, producers of these final goods, when they have to import raw material, these raw materials should follow all quality control orders. That makes them expensive, and that makes it difficult to procure raw materials, cheap raw materials. So these producers have to follow quality control orders for this. Okay. It is becoming difficult for them to produce final goods and export them properly. This is the biggest problem. So they are saying that the idea of quality control order is a good thing, but you need to change some rules because currently the rules are not that great. Okay, so change it. Don't give up on the idea of QCOs. Just make some changes. Okay. So what are the negative cons about QCOs? First, let's talk about QCOs. So these are regulatory directives issued by government under Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS Act, and other laws. QCOs mandate compulsory certification and testing of products under Indian standards. So you have to get your product tested from a lab, BIS lab. Non-compliance with QCOs can lead to confiscation, fines, penalties, legal action. Bureau of Indian Standards plays a central role in certification, enforcement, and conformity. Okay, they make sure that all products are following these QCOs. Now, what are the negative consequences? First of all, you are only covering raw material, so coverage issues. Then, because of that, input costs, raw material costs have increased and their supply has become delayed. This is a problem. Because of this, there are many manufacturers, many exporters in India, which import raw material from abroad, produce it in India, and then export it. Now, importing from abroad has become difficult because of these QCOs. So it has reduced our imports, but it has reduced our exports as well. Plus, all these orders are easy for large companies to follow, but they have created special burden on MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises. Then specific sectors, export-related sectors which are export-related, like gems, jewelry, and others. They have been hit the hardest. Then intermediate goods effect, because intermediate goods have now become expensive. Clear? So these are some of the concerns. Now, what is the way forward? Well, the biggest problem is testing backlogs. You have to get your product tested, but there are not enough BIS approved labs. So there are delays. So take care of this. Then, well, these quality control orders have to be followed by companies which are in India, but not in India's SEZs. So SEZ companies have an unfair advantage. So reduce this unfair advantage. Okay. Make sure that quality control orders are followed by SEZs and DTAs. Domestic companies as well as Indian companies in SEZs. And one quality control order with respect to steel sector. Change that. Revoke steel importing monitoring system and no objection certificates process. Every steel product that you have imported needs to get no objection certificate. There is no need for this no objection certificate because these products which are imported are already verified by Director General of Foreign Trade. So you are doubling the effort. of inspecting this. Okay, so these are just undue delays. So make sure that these things are taken care of. Okay, and now let's talk about the last news item, and that is double helix structure of DNA. You all know what is DNA? All living organisms are made up of DNA. And all our genetic information about how we look, how tall we will be, every physiological fact about you is already programmed in your DNA. And you inherit your DNA from your parents. Okay? Now, this discovery was made in 19th or 20th century. Okay? Majorly 20th century. But so far, scientists were puzzled as to what is the structure of these DNA molecules. How do they look? Well, there was this guy called James Watson. He discovered the structure of DNA. It looks like a double helix structure, right? He, along with another scientist, discovered that. And because of that, genetic sciences, genetic engineering exploded after that. Once we figured out how DNA looks, then genetic engineering, well, it took off, right? So he should be credited with breakthroughs in modern science, modern medical science, James Watson. Okay. Now, recently, James Watson died at the age of 97. And this is the time when we remember his contributions to the field of medical science. Okay. So let's talk about double helical structure of DNA. All right. Okay. So yeah, double helical structure of DNA. So what was in the news? James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the DNA double helix structure in 1953, considered one of the greatest scientific achievements of 20th century. Okay, this is how our DNA looks, right? Double helix structure. Two lines crisscrossing each other. Not crisscrossing, but bending, surrounding each other, right? This is double helix structure. This breakthrough explained how genetic information is stored, replicated, and passed on from generation to generation, from our parents to us, then to our offspring, then to their offspring, and so on and so forth. Last week, Watson died. Okay. So look, this is very important, though if you're not understanding this, then it's okay. Because it is too technical or complicated. But if you're understanding this, what I'm about to explain, then it's okay. If you're not, if you have some doubts, wait for it. We will cover this in our science and technology lectures. Okay. Now, every DNA strand, okay, it consists of two lines. Every DNA molecule consists of two lines. And on these two lines, there are pairs, lines joining these two lines. Okay. Now, pairs are made up of four molecules. Okay. Let's talk about these four molecules. Adenine, A, thymine, T, cytosine, C, and guanine, G. ATCG. Okay. So there is A, T, C, G. Clear? So they combine with each other. So A on one line and T on other line, they make a bond. This bond is known as base pair. Okay. Then C at one place on one line and G on another line, they would form a bond. This is another base pair. So DNA is made up of countless base pairs. And the arrangement of these base pairs decide how you look, what will be your physical features, everything. Okay. Remember, A can only form a bond with T, C can only form a bond with G. And the chronology of these base pairs decides what the DNA would be like. Okay, that's about it. That's all you need to know. And this was discovered by James Watson. Okay, DNA was chemically discovered in 1869. So the chemical was discovered in 1869 by Frederick Miescher. But how it looks, what is its structure, was discovered by James Watson. By 1940s, DNA was confirmed as the carrier of genetic information. Earlier, it was thought that genetic information is in proteins found in our body. But no, it was confirmed that it is DNA. Watson and Crick used 3D wooden models combined with chemical data and X-ray crystallography images to show that DNA looks like a double helix structure. Okay, and they also showed that adenine will only pair with thymine, A will only pair with T, C will only pair with G. That's about it. The significance, it explained the accurate replication mechanism of genetic material. So, you know what happens when you're born? You take one line from your father and another line from your mother. And then these two lines are arranged in double helix structure. You get your DNA. Okay, this is what was discovered. It explained the accurate how information, genetic information is inherited from parents to offspring. Because you take one line from each from your father and mother. Okay. Now with this discovery, everything changed. Genetic sciences changed, and today we have so many genetic therapies, genetic engineering, many diseases are cured, many crops are engineered so that agriculture flourishes. Everything is happening because of this discovery. Clear? Make sense? All right. That would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you're consistent and regular with this lecture series and you revise it from the notes. So please do not forget to do that. And I shall see you next time with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.